to the last 10. I ran away with my life, fast forward, never.
Buongiorno, ciao, greetings from Italy. Welcome to the Paragliding Easy Stories. Today we are in Bassano del Grappa, one of the most visited flying sites in Europe. Today we are going to fly 120 kilometers triangle. Join me on this ride, I will show you how to do this. Buckle up, we're taking off.
It's true, I'm just as surprised as you. Is this really happening? I can't be too sure, but one day I'll be yours again.
Bassano is a really nice place to fly. Over the past years I have done over 150 flights here. If you are into XC flying like me, you should definitely fly un classico di Bassano, the 100 km triangle. Look, I have flown it almost 30 times before, so I thought I could share my experience with you and give you some hints about the route, the key spots and the options you will have during the flight. So, on what wing is such a triangle possible? Do you have to fly a high-performance wing? Of course not. Everything starting with a low A&B glider will be fine. I've done my first Classico di Bassano on a mid A&B glider. The standard route looks like this. You first fly to the east and then back to the takeoff. After that it goes to the west and then back again. Finally, if you want to extend the triangle a bit, you fly over Bassano into the flatlands and glide back to the landing. I hope with this how-to video I can help you close this triangle, and I can guarantee you will have a lot of fun flying it. So let's take off! For the first thermal we have two options, to the right at the end of the ridge or to the left. I usually prefer the left one because it works great at any wind direction. We can climb here, but it feels like this thermal is not strong enough, so don't waste much time here and check if we can get a better one. Just fly further along the slope, there will be more thermals. Yep, that's it, much better, now reliably climbing. See that little green field down below? It's another takeoff called Tapepi or Tapeti. I prefer the other one we just took off from, called Stella, because it's just usually less crowded. We will fly more relaxed if we can climb higher than 1000 meters above sea level at this point, just like we did now. But it also works with much lower altitude. Our first goal is to arrive to the next trigger point, which is slightly above this plateau at the ridge in front of us. You can surely arrive below it as well, and it works, but we go for an easy option. At this point we climb slightly above this peak. No need to climb to the cloud base here, even if the thermal is strong. Just exit the thermal and glide along the slope. Depending on how comfortable you are flying close to terrain, you can vary the proximity and fly on speed bar or using the brakes. Even without the speed bar, it's much faster to fly just straight, rather than circling in each and every thermal you find underway. Still, if the conditions are not strong yet, or if you want to fly high, you can climb in the thermal triggered by these small ridges. Always fly above the ridge first and try to spot where the thermal is the strongest. The wind might offset the core a bit. This is the first spot. You should gain as much altitude as possible for a comfortable crossing, especially if you are on an E and B class wing. But don't climb over 1500 meters above sea level, it's not necessary. Now we glide to the other side. You can be sure you'll find thermals there, so push the speed bar as much as you are comfortable. If you arrive low, search for thermals at the slope here. I've got a lot of altitude now, so I'll just skip it and fly further. This is the second reliable thermal at this mountain. See that remarkable forest line down below? It triggers thermals all day long. You might need to search a bit because the wind can skew the thermal. Going further to the east, if the cloud base is low, you can fly close to the slope. The air is always rising here. In my case, I just push the bar and fly straight. I have enough altitude. This little peak always delivers nice thermals, so fly around it and you'll find something. If you don't like flying close to terrain, you can set your eastern turn point here, but achieving a 100 km triangle will be much harder then. I'd suggest you to get as much as you can out of this little summit, so we can complete one of the most uncomfortable pieces of the whole route. Our goal is to fly over this flat ridge until we see an antenna below us. Note that often you'll fly with tailwind, so it will seem to be easy, but the way back can be quite challenging, so let's try it. Sometimes you can find thermals underway, but they are often weak and narrow. I'd try one turn here, but feel that it's not worth trying to work this thermal. Okay, here is the antenna we will set our turn point above. The most eastern point of our triangle is done. Push the bar and glide against the wind. Try to stay close to the ridge, but keep an eye on your glide angle. You want to make sure you can get over the trees and reach the fields below the ridge in case you need to escape. You'll just have to fly close to terrain here, so be prepared. If you'll find a nice and well-defined thermal, get some altitude. You might also need to search, like I needed here. Yeah. So finally something we can climb in. I decided to spend more time than needed in this thermal because I was a bit frustrated by the forest scratching action. Getting back to that little summit which always delivers. And it does! Next, gliding to the mountain with the remarkable forest line. It's a reliable spot, but the next one is reliable as well, so I'm continuing to the western slope. Here you can get as much altitude as it goes, but try to climb up to at least 1400 meters above sea level. When you're higher than the summit, push the speed bar and fly to the other side. Here you usually need only a couple of turns. If you started your crossing higher than 1600 meters above sea level, you don't even need a single one. And from here on, you will be flying straight back to the takeoff, without a single circle. Just trust me, it works. Push the bar and off we go. Here's the tapeti takeoff in front of us. You can search for some thermals here, but be aware that the air might be full of paragliders, so I usually skip the place and fly directly to the next spot, Antenna Costa Lunga. This is it. We need to get at least 1000 meters above sea level here. It's the minimum comfortable altitude for our upcoming valley crossing over the Brenta River. 1200 meters are better. If you get 1400 meters and more, the crossing will be piece of cake. Okay, so 1200 is enough for me, so I push the bar and get to the other side. You have two options for the crossing. Flying straight or flying more to the right. I prefer the first option because it's faster. However, if you arrive low, you might need to fight with the lee side. Watch my other video about this place. If you arrive over the ridge, it's usually better to fly further and skip the thermal here. It's quite turbulent and also skewed in the opposite direction to our heading. If you choose the alternative route, you'll have to find a thermal at the slope and climb over the ridge first. So I skip this ridge and continue to the west. It's always nice to have a flying buddy. We're flying from the eastern turn point together now and we'll stay close for almost the whole flight. Now we get to the western slopes of this hill with antennas. The place is called Rubio and there are 2 takeoffs on this hill. Search for a nice thermal and get some altitude. It's one of the reliable places for getting up. You can climb up to the cloud base, but it's not necessary. The ridge in front of us always delivers a constant updraft, so we can just fly straight. Near to the end of the ridge, it makes sense to get some altitude. If you don't do this, you can watch my another video what might happen. Yep, that's my favorite place, La Verda, loving it. But let's continue to the next ski spot, which is called Louisiana. See this cemetery down below? 100% reliable thermal source. Don't ask me why. Here is Louisiana. You see a sugar field where you can land if you are uncomfortable with this place. It might be a bit tricky, especially with much wind. These slopes trigger nice thermals, but you need to find them. Depending on the wind, the southern or the western slope. You see some wings climbing in the bubbles above Louisiana. You can also search for thermals above the buildings, but watch your altitude and be aware of antennas and power lines. You can climb up to the cloud base here, but 1300 meters above sea level are certainly enough, so I continue to the west. From here you can fly straight to the next ski spot. Don't waste any time in the thermals, just fly straight. A hint to remember: if you are above or at the same height as this little forest patch, all is fine. If you are below, you might need to do a couple of turns. The next hint: try to arrive above this little pond. If you are below, not terrible, but you'll need more time to get up again. This place is called Caltrano, and it's often referenced as Schio crossing. There's a town called Schio down there. Our next goal is Monte Sumano in front of us. But first we need to climb, and here you can surely climb up to the cloud base. Try to reach at least 1500 meters above sea level for a comfortable crossing. If you are on a low A and B wing, you should aim for 1700. The thermals might be quite turbulent at this slope, so stay focused. I got 1400 meters above sea level and start the big 7 kilometers crossing. Try to fly a slight curve instead of a straight line. You might get some updraft from the factory down below, and you'll also avoid the sinking air of the lee side caused by Monte Sumano. During the crossing, you'll have time to eat, to take some photos, or just to relax and enjoy the scenery. At Monte Sumano you'll hit some strong thermals, so be prepared. Next, glide to the western slopes of Monte Sumano. Here, get over the summit, greet the tourists staring at you, shout them "Buongiorno" and smile. 1500 meters is a comfortable altitude to start the next crossing, but try to be above the summit in any case. We are heading further to the west, just above this small and peculiar ridge. You can also fly a direct line here, but it usually requires more altitude, like 1800 or more. You might feel you are pretty low here, but this place is full of reliable updraft. Just scratch along the slope, get some 200 meters and continue to the forest slopes of Monte Novenio. Fly along the slope until you hit a well-defined thermal. Here, make sure you climb over the huge plateau of Monte Novenio and fly further to the west. Behind me is Monte Cagliano. If you want to fly a 100 km triangle, this is your western turn point. Get some altitude over the summit and fly back with a huge smile. Behind me you see Monte Novenio with its huge plateau. For 120 km we need to go a bit further to the west. So push the speed bar and move forward. You can try getting some altitude over the forest, but usually the thermals are not so comfortable here. Approaching the cliffs. This is where things get serious. It can be really turbulent here, especially in spring, so stay focused. In October, as you see, the air is pretty calm here. Our goal is to get over this ridge. There is a strong thermal just above it, but it's pretty uncomfortable underneath, so better get a couple of additional 100 meters on the way there. Here's the catapult that gets us high up to the clouds. The landscape is different here with those vertical cliffs. Enjoy the scenery, but be aware of strong air. This is the western turn point for a 120 km triangle. You can fly a bit furthermore to get a couple of kilometers on top. The way back is usually easier. You get some support from the westerly winds and you fly from the higher terrain to the lower one. You need 1.5 or 2 hours to get back to the takeoff from here. In March or October it's best if you can turn around at 2:30 p.m. In June you definitely have 1 or 2 hours more. We just got up to the cloud base in that nice catapult thermal and can fly back to Monte Cagliano. Up here we have tailwind, but the lower we get the more headwind will come. Depending on your wing, you might need another thermal somewhere here. At Monte Cagliano, scratch along the slope to find a strong thermal. This ridge in front of us creates a strong lee side, so we need to climb before approaching it. If you are low here, it might get uncomfortable. You will need to somehow find your way to the upwind side. There are some landing options below in case you won't make it against the headwind, which might get quite strong at this place. Okay, so found a nice thermal, a bit bumpy due to the lee side, but quite manageable. This blue wing is the same flying body, by the way, I made at the eastern turn point in the morning. So let's cross the ugly lee side and get to Monte Novenio. At Monte Novegno, I'd suggest to climb to the cloud base or at least up to 1600 meters above sea level. Push the bar and head to Monte Sumano. This time we fly straight back to it. The same story with the wind. Tailwind up there and more headwind the lower we get. Aim for the southern slopes of Monte Sumano because the western ones are on the lee side. Yes, the sun is now on the west side, but you don't want to get into the massive turbulent sink there. If you hit a strong thermal at this point, climb up to the summit, or just proceed to the east. This is our route direction anyway. Climb as high as you can, we have a long crossing in front of us. If you are on a low NB wing, aim for 1700 meters above sea level. In general, try to get at least up to 1400 meters. The route to the left is the shortest, but you will lose a lot of height in the rotor behind Monte Sumano. Also, you will have to fight against the strong valley breeze on the other side. Instead, fly a slight curve to the right to avoid the lee side and to arrive outside of the valley. And you can catch a thermal over that factory again, which will make your life easier. Somewhere here you will hit a strong and windy thermal. Focus and get some height. Then you can get closer to the terrain and continue climbing. You actually don't need much altitude here, but if the thermal is strong, get up to the cloud base. This way you can fly back faster. Now just head back to Louisiana. You can fly the straight line or along the slopes to the left. You will find some thermals underway, but don't waste your time if they are not strong enough. Skip everything below, say, 2 meters per second or so. You can do a couple of search circles indeed. Welcome to Louisiana. This hill delivers a reliable thermal as usual, but that thermal can be pretty skewed by the wind, so you might need to search for it and feel its drift while thermaling. I skip it for now because I have enough altitude. Back to the symmetry. Yep, the most reliable thermal source on the whole route. You will see now. And now we fly straight to Rubio over the flat ridge in front of us. You really don't need to thermal over the ridge unless you get down below 800 meters above sea level. Here at the Rubio Hill, chances are high that you hit a strong thermal even late in the day. I've seen here 5 meters per second updrafts, while the air was almost dead everywhere else. I've got a lot of altitude now, but if you are low, it's not a problem. Fly along this slope. The air will slowly push you up and you will eventually hit a strong thermal somewhere. At this altitude you could actually fly directly over the Brenta Valley, if you don't find a thermal right away. I got one, so I just use it. From here you can also fly into the flatlands over Bassano. But there are no clouds now, and I'm not the best flatlands pilot, so I just get back to Antenna Costalunga on the other side of the valley. Usually there are many pilots at this time over the antenna, so we can fly together into the flatlands, increasing our chances to find weak and late thermals. The takeoffs and the landings are in front of us. If you feel tired, you can glide down to the landing now. The 100 km triangle is in your pocket. Still hungry for some kilometers? Let's enjoy the calm flatlands air. So climb as high as you can and head south. It's such a nice conclusion of the day each time, just relaxing and gliding in calm air. Time to open some drinks, to call your friends and to enjoy your life. If you want to get the most points on X contest, you need to get back to the takeoff and fly over it. What a day, what a flight, I really enjoyed it. And I do enjoy this route each time, to be honest. I invite you to Bassano del Grappa, and I hope my short how-to video will inspire you for this nice Italian adventure. And here is the whole flight one more time with some highlights. Enjoy!
At 29 and I find myself wondering what did happen to the last 10. I ran away with my life, fast forward, never turn back again. It's kind of funny that the more we pass time, the more we need to set them rewind. And 19 was the year I had to leave you, but now I'm seeing all the signs. Is this really happening? I can't believe it's true. I'm just as surprised as you. Is this really happening? I can't be too sure, but one day I'll be yours again. Lessons come one in a dozen, the other 11 give something from nothing. I sit here looking for an answer. Maybe the biggest question was in the last chapter. You gave me the soul I have today. Without you I never could have moved away, but now I see what you teach. I do believe